They hit the B-17 so hard it snapped in two at 24,000 feet, and as the wreckage fell through the sky, one American gun was still firing. The morning over Germany was cold and clear, perfect weather for killing bombers. A formation of B-17 flying fortresses droned forward, silver shapes against pale blue sky. Inside one of them, a tail gunner named Staff Sergeant Maynard Snuffy Smith, young, tired, and already too familiar with fear, watched the empty sky behind him. The tail position was the loneliest place on the aircraft. No crew around you, no engine noise to hide behind, just glass, guns, and open air. He had seen this view before, and he knew what usually came next. The German fighters didn't rush in. They circled, waited, like wolves deciding which animal would fall first. Then the call came over the intercom. Bandits, 6 o'clock. The sky behind the bomber exploded into motion. Messerschmitts, Focke-Wulfs, dark shapes streaking forward at impossible speed. Smith squeezed the triggers. Twin .50 caliber machine guns roared, shaking his entire body. Brass casings clattered around his feet. The smell of cordite filled the tail. Tracers stitched through the sky. Some missed, some didn't. One German fighter burst into smoke and peeled away. Another followed, but the rest kept coming. Cannon fire slammed into the bomber. The aircraft shuddered. Metal screamed. A blast tore through the fuselage. Then came the hit. A 20mm shell struck the B-17 just forward of the tail section. There was no warning, no time to react. The airplane broke. Not cracked, not damaged, broken. The tail section, Smith and all, was ripped cleanly away from the rest of the bomber. Sudden silence. No engines, no intercom, no formation, just wind. The tail was falling. 24,000 feet above occupied Europe, Smith realized he was no longer in an airplane. He was in a piece of one. The ground spun far below, a distant blur. The cold slammed into him like a wall. Most men would have frozen, screamed, given up. Smith didn't. He was still alive. His guns were still mounted, and German fighters were still in the sky. As the tail section tumbled downward, Smith locked his boots and leaned into the guns. The wind tore at him. Gravity pulled him to death, and he fired. Short bursts at first, controlled, professional. A German fighter slid into his sights, clearly not expecting return fire from a falling wreck. Smith adjusted, squeezed. The fighter jerked. Smoke poured from its engine. It rolled and vanished into the clouds below. The tail kept spinning. Another fighter crossed his view. Smith fired again, fighting the wind, the rotation, the madness of the moment. The guns bucked wildly now. The sky flashed. The aircraft below him dropped away. Somewhere above, the rest of the B-17 was already gone, either destroyed or falling in pieces of its own. The mission was over. The formation had moved on, but Smith was still fighting. Until the ammunition ran out, until the air tore the guns from his hands, until the tail section finally ripped apart around him. There was no parachute jump, no miracle landing, just silence as the wreckage disappeared into the clouds. When the war ended, there was no body to bring home, only reports, fragments, and the testimony of German pilots who swore they had been fired on by a man falling out of the sky. In a war defined by machines, altitude, and numbers, his last moments were brutally human. Cold fingers, burning lungs, a decision to fight anyway. The B-17 was designed to be a flying fortress, but that day, the fortress failed. The gunner did not, and somewhere between the clouds and the earth, at 24,000 feet, an American kept shooting, not because he thought he would live, but because that was his job.